So I just wanted to come on and share a couple of topics that came up today in work and I thought would be really helpful for the collective in terms of self-growth. One of the topics that came up today was this idea of forgiveness. I've had this conversation before many times. People seem triggered by the word forgiveness. They seem to think, actually came up in my Facebook memories today too, a post I had made a long time ago. Every time I make a post about forgiveness, there's always one or two people that snap to. They get very offended. They get very upset. It's very overwhelming for them. And, when I see that, I know immediately they're suffering. They're having a hard time letting go of something that happened to them. Their oppressor, their aggressor, their abuser. They're having a hard time walking away from that situation. And so the word upsets them because they feel like they are not ready to forgive that person or that experience. So I wanted to have a conversation here about forgiveness because I need to explain what I mean about forgiveness, but also because it helps to understand this version of forgiveness. I didn't have the greatest life. There was a lot of abuse. There was a lot of trauma. There was a lot of negative experiences, mostly at the hands of my grandparents. They are now deceased. But forgiveness was my first step to healing and releasing myself from these patterns. Essentially, I had to first let go of the trauma. And the way that I forgave is I recognized that they were humans conducting trauma, repeating trauma, spreading trauma from their own childhoods, from their own experiences. They had had horrible lives. They were abused, they were raped, they were molested, they were mistreated, they were neglected, they were sold. They had horrible traumatic experiences. They could not evolve from those experiences. And when you cannot evolve from those experiences, you continue the pattern. So in many ways, they were a product of their raising, and they remained a product of their raising until the day that they died. After a soul dies, usually what happens is they cross over. When they cross over to their all-knowing selves, they realize what they had done and they try to make amends somehow, whether it's reincarnation, karmic working through karmic debts and patterns, coming back as soul family, whatever it is that they do, they find a way to come back and make amends for the trauma that they created while here on earth. So it wasn't until after they died that I realized that they were not the same people anymore. That once they had crossed that barrier, they were now all-knowing again. So these souls, these divine, evolved beings, were not the same as the people I knew here on earth. And the people here on earth were a product of their patterns, of their raising, of their trauma. And in that way, I was able to look at this and say, well, I don't need to wait until I'm dead to learn my lesson. I have this beautiful opportunity to see that I can either choose to be a conductor of my trauma or I can be a conductor of love. I can choose to understand where and why they were the way that they were without victimizing myself and without holding on to that pain. Because if I held on to that pain, then I would be recreating the pattern somehow. Holding on to suffering creates suffering. You cannot heal while you are still holding on to that. You cannot move on while you are still obsessing over what they did and the memories of that and what happened and your experience of the past. The only way is to say, I understand why you did the things that you do. I won't let you hurt me anymore. I'm not inviting you into my house or my life or my family. I'm not being best friends with you. You'll never have a space at my table again. But I recognize why you did the things that you did. And I forgive because I deserve to move on. I deserve to walk away. I deserve to let go and stop reliving that abuse every single day, over and over and over again. So we forgive, not to release our abusers of the things that they did. There's no escaping that. You have to work through that, heal that, create amends, work with the people you hurt. That takes a long time. We forgive so that we may move on, so that we can be healed, so that we can continue evolving and growing and break the pattern. We cannot break the pattern if we cannot heal. And it's so sad when I see people who get very triggered and angry about that word forgiveness, because I know it's a red flag that they are still suffering and cannot let go of a trauma that happened in their past. And so I share this so people can kind of experience what it means in the privacy of their own home on a video format where they can listen and maybe put aside their defense mechanisms long enough to let it sit with them and understand that maybe it's time to let go of some things that they have been carrying. Now, an interesting topic that goes with this is this idea of victimization. I want to talk about this. So many of us choose intentionally the lives we come into, right? It's like 99.9% of the souls that come to Earth know exactly what they're getting themselves into. So why on earth would I choose this life of rape, abuse, aggression, trauma, addiction? Why would I choose that, right? Why would I choose to be surrounded by that? It doesn't make any sense. When we look at the soul level perspective of it, we can now see that I chose this life. Many souls choose these lives because they hope that they'll be the ones to break the pattern. They hope that they can come in, see the pattern, observe the pattern, free themselves of the pattern, and stop the pattern, thus freeing a whole generation, a whole generational linking chain of this repetition of the pattern. So we choose this life on purpose, thinking that we're going to be the ones to escape it. We're going to be the ones to break this pattern. We're going to be the ones to set our family free. The issue is that many times we feel victimized by these experiences because we lose our connection to our soul. So we forget why we are actually here. And we think, we become a victim. It's very easy to become a victim when you are literally being beaten and abused and tormented and you feel like your life has no meaning or ending. And we fall into these patterns where we feel victimized and we become trapped because we cannot escape that. We feel like the world has been cruel to us. We have had cruel experiences. We have endured too much. There's no way to heal from that. There is no way to kind of see above you're drowning, your emotions, your emotional body. There's no way to see above and beyond that because you're so consumed in the suffering that you can't see anything else. You can't see the why. You don't know why on earth you would choose such a horrific experience. And then you become conductors of that pattern because you've never been able to see outside of it. When you become a conductor, you are choosing to not heal because you don't see it. It's not really like... It's like my husband will say this now. He'll be like, well, why did you choose the relationships you did? And to me, it was all I knew. I was recreating the pattern because it's all I thought I was worth. And now it's so easy to look back and say that. But him, as a person who was healed, doesn't really understand that because it doesn't comprehend with him. But me, I see that that's all I believed I was worth. So I very easily fell into those patterns myself. And then you get out of that, you step out of that, you heal, you forgive, you let go, and you're like, oh, I made some bad decisions myself because I should have walked away sooner. I should have healed faster. I should have been brave enough. So here's the thing. When we victimize people or we allow people to play victim, essentially we're saying that you're not strong enough to walk away from this. You're not strong enough to evolve this. You probably didn't choose this life. You were tormented and the world's terrible and you'll never get anything out of this in any way or accomplish anything from this. When we realize that we created our lives, that we chose these lives, that we jumped in and hoped to make change, we hope to walk away from it, we hope to break patterns, we hope to rise above this repetition, this generational trauma, we empower one another to walk away from it, to start fresh, to have the ability to kind of recreate ourselves again and again and again. And they're two totally different realities, aren't they? Because when we're a victim, there's no way out. When we empower, there's no way we're getting stuck. And all of a sudden, when you're on this empowerment streak, when you're no longer a victim, when you're the divine creator of your reality, when you're in charge, when your actions are, when you're responsible for your actions, nobody can hold you back. There is no closed door. There's only opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. So I think that we all need to get out of this victim mindset. We need to realize that if we are still blaming people, yes, they did some stuff. That was their responsibility. They will be held accountable for those things. Karma does not miss a beat. But it's your responsibility to move on from that. It's your responsibility to heal from that because you knew you could, because you chose this life and that was your mission. And your job is to get through this, not to blame, not to project, not to say, it's their fault. I am the way that I am. I'm going to continue this pattern because it's their fault, because I'm a victim, because they put me here. So we need to pay attention to this idea, this mindset, because many times we want to feel bad for each other, and that plays into the victim mentality, right? I've been there myself. I used to look at people and feel so bad for the lives that they lived and the situations that they were in. And then now myself, I see, wow, you were so strong. You chose such a strong life. You knew you could overcome this. You knew you had the power to work through this. You knew that you could make a difference. And I want everybody to think of that when you feel stuck or when you feel like life's hard or you feel overwhelmed. Remember that you have the power to overcome the mountains you chose in your story. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know it's been a really difficult time globally, but I think that we can all make tremendous change in our life when we know we are accountable for our healing and it's our responsibility. Thanks for listening.